Well, good evening and welcome to this edition of the Island Stat Sports Show. I'm your host, Earl Basin, and joining me is Jason Juggling J. Ford. Jay, first of all, good evening. All is well?
Yes, man. Yes, we are here once again.
Yeah.
Wednesday night.
Another Wednesday night. Hopefully we'll be joined by Epic Entertainment to discuss the fight night, which is not this Saturday, but next week, Saturday night, up in Dockyard. We still have to figure out all the COVID restrictions. We still have to figure out, all the stuff that goes along. And hopefully, if when Tico comes on, he can give the viewers an opportunity to hear what's been going on behind the scenes. Because I know now that we're doing this, watch the amount of interviews with the fighters coming up, because now everybody's going to play catch up.
Yeah. Well, once again, this is shout out to Epic Entertainment, because they're really, stuck through this, through the cancellations or the postponements, I should say, of the last 2 fights.
It was supposed to be January or February of 2020.
Yeah, it was actually end of February, I believe.
2020.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then that got canceled.
Yeah.
And then obviously with Fairmont closing, more doubts and more all sorts of other things. And then again, we got hit with another pandemic, because that was supposed to be November of last year, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So now we're we got our fingers crossed for the 29th of January up in Dockyard, a fight night to remember. One of the things I'm trying to wrap my head around is that there's so many fights on the card. How are we gonna get through? How we can get through them?
Well, one thing I will say, I've ventured and been a part of a couple of them already, a couple of fights, and I will tell you that there's always been a lot of fights on the card. There's nothing new with his cards are normally packed to.
Oh yeah,
once again, and what I loved about the card that, and that as somebody who follows the sport, you're always seeing somebody new too.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You always see somebody new.
Yeah.
Whether they're new to the sport, you're seeing the young ones come through, and now you're seeing the young ones now has probably got a couple of fights under their belts, and now you probably see a couple of new ones this time around. But to have that avenue for local boxers, local fighters, because there's also I believe it's a mixed martial arts in it also.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So to have that avenue for these fighters locally that we haven't had since 2019.
Yeah, true. I mean, quite a few of them have done probably a lot of virtual stuff. Not the boxers, obviously, but a lot of the mixed martial arts people have done a lot of virtual stuff. But it's nothing like getting hit and being hit, or hitting somebody and getting hit. It's a totally different feeling.
That goes both ways, man.
I know one of the biggest things is getting the fighters to Bermuda in good health. Obviously, everybody will have their fingers crossed about COVID, because what you don't want on the night is a bunch of cancellations or a bunch of postponements or those type of things. But we live in those days now that these things are a possibility.
Most definitely, and I would even think, just as a promoter standpoint, once upon a time, you could probably have a fighter fly in the day before and fight the next night. With these protocols now, it's going to be very touch and go if you make that happen. You could probably bring the fighter in a few more days, which will add a few more dollars to the budget.
Mm-hmm.
So when you start looking at stuff like that, and then all the extra costs when it comes to the TAs and the COVID testing and the turnaround testing, because a lot of these turnaround testing places charge you, a little bit. So it's gonna be interesting how he pulls this off. And I'll tell you, I do have confidence with if anybody who will attempt to pull this off is the one who will attempt it at least.
Yeah, another one of the questions I really want to get over is we all talk about the night, but the night before is the weigh-in. How would that look? What would that look like? Usually we have the two boxers there, the two opponents. What would that look like this time around? We've seen MMA return, we've seen boxing return. It's a little different, but they still managed to get all those same looking things, what they call them, the event things,
Yes.
before the fight. They still managed all those things.
I would just try to make it as simple as possible.
Mm, mm,
Less people as possible,
yeah.
because of the fact of where we're at.
Mm,
Because you
definitely.
got to try to manage the moment. See, when you got so many people going on, it's hard to manage the moment.
Yeah.
The least amount of people is easy to manage the moment when it comes to protocols and this and that. You know what I'm saying? So I think that would be my advice to the team, and I'm pretty sure they've already thought about that already.
Mm, mm,
What would be interesting to me, and we talk about it now because we're 2 weeks out and we don't see nobody really talking about the actual fights. But let's go. I'm gonna go straight to the main bout. Um, our local, our hero, Nicky Bascom.
mm,
I mean, a couple of years ago was his last fight, and we're thinking, man, this his in that age bracket where you got to do it now.
yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
you're 2 years down the road now, and it's
Right.
interesting how he fights in this fight,
Mm,
and the outcome of this fight, and then his future after this fight.
right. Right.
Because once again, we're 2 years down the road. What's the chance of him getting another fight of this nature within the next 6 months?
Mm,
So
yeah.
you start looking at time. Time is not on his hands. Well, on his side when you say that. Now,
Right.
if you look at, I believe Showtime's on the Andre Lamb,
Yeah.
um, Roach, and a few of the younger guys, Parsons,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
they got some time, right? So they're still building their trade. So, but it's going to be interesting, like I said, the storylines around Nikki, and then obviously the young ones, how much they have improved from the last fight, last
Mm,
epic fight, because that's the only time we would have seen them. Would have been the
right.
last epic fight if we don't go to the gym and see these guys spar. And how much do you really get out of sparring? So with these guys, so a lot of questions to be asked, a lot of storylines, but hey, it's one of those things you probably have to be there.
Yeah. We have to wait for the night for it to all unveil.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely. Real quick. Obviously, a lot of talk today about the COVID update for Bermuda. One of the changes, if any, if the only one, is the curfew. Curfew it expires on the 20th. So I guess with the tsunami the other day, over on the other side of the world, it goes the 5 o'clock one out, the 12:30 to 5 o'clock one out. So we're now clear to be.
Locals. I'm got to a point where now is and I'm smiling, but man. You know what I feel like inside, or you know how my business has been affected through this.
Yeah.
It's I'm so angry when it comes to things like this because just doing a little bit of background and just not much research, just Google search.
Mm,
When we was put on COVID, we was put on curfew in December, late December, just before Christmas, if you remember, just before Christmas,
mhm,
right? We had about 152 active cases. We was put on curfew.
mhm,
We have close to 2,000, well, probably over 2,000, depending on what comes up probably tonight or tomorrow. Um, and we're coming off curfew.
mm.
Obviously, I'm not one full curfew, but it's got to make sense to me.
Well, to tell you the truth, some of this stuff has all been stand-up comedian. It's just been laughable. Um, Understanding that this is new to everyone. There was some thought put into why certain things were done. And obviously, when government were making decisions, there was a group of people in a room making decisions, and they kept coming out and saying, well, we're going by the numbers, we're going by the numbers, we're going by the numbers. Right now, as you've already indicated, the numbers don't match up to what we're doing.
Decisions that are being made. Nope.
Yeah.
You follow the data, and we mentioned it many times. That data kept moving. We talked about the herd immunity. We flew across that, and nobody said a word. And Is there a new herd immunity? We're pushing to do more boosters and this, but we're still not saying, okay, what is the end game? And then the last couple of weeks, we're hearing, from government that we want to move past this pandemic to epidemic, and I'm like, okay, well, but we're still what? How do we do that? What is the numbers? Are you going by numbers or are you going by feeling? Because you relax some of the restrictions around the airport, import of visitors, and that's when we
jumped up.
Mm-hmm. So now we're at a place where we are, and once again, where locals are suffering, but you're still not protecting where it's coming from. So I hate to say, if this is what's going to be, then any strain in the next umpteen years, we're going to be playing this tic-tac-toe.
Mm-hmm. And on the heels of that, well, actually, in front of that, we had Boris Johnson announce that in the UK, starting tomorrow, throw away your mask. Indoors, outdoors, throw away your mask. Now, he's under a lot of pressure. So now he's trying to get a churn section. How do you get a churn section? Giving people what they want.
But that was based on some information that reached the internet today regarding the CDC regarding masks.
Right.
And actually, that's been around for a while because I did see a study, like I said, a couple of weeks ago, the different masks, how effective they are.
Right.
Basically, if you wasn't wearing the N95, the rest of it basically for show.
It's fashion.
Yeah.
Most of the time, most of the masks were just for fashion.
So just explain what you went through when you went to Turkey regarding, because that's a story I don't think
we were required to wear only the surgical masks were allowed. So you had to they were literally checking to see if you were wearing those masks. Even it started before you boarded the flight. You had to show them. That's what that's okay. You can get on. They were not laxing it for anybody, especially visitors. They made sure you're visiting. Take back what you brought. So those types of restrictions and stuff. So they were adamant, and again, even for the Winter Olympics, they're doing the same thing. I was reading a study article just the other day. They were talking about the athletes coming in, and they're going to have to do the same thing that we were doing in Tokyo, and testing every day and wearing the mask and all of that. And they have spotters. Listen, somebody come tap you on the shoulder. You got to do what you got to do.
And we talked about it because of the fact of how much money that's around those events that they have to protect their assets, protect their investments. So you're going, they can make those decisions based on their investment,
right?
But when we have what we have here locally, this is unfortunate because we're not getting. There's a lot of questions and we're not getting the answers. And unfortunately, we're getting statements. Yeah. I will say that we're getting press statements, but we're not getting the answers to the questions that many people want to know.
Right.
The whys. We're just getting a statement, okay, curfew, or we're getting a statement of this and that, and we're not okay. Show me how you got to that. And it's hard. It's hard to be supportive right now.
Right.
What I will say, and I am grateful for, that we haven't had many deaths this year. So
from this swing here,
so it's something I'm very grateful for because one is too many. So
I'm
definitely grateful for that.
But we're going to take a quick commercial break, and hopefully you can reach out to Epic Entertainment once again to see if they can join us to give us an update on the upcoming fight night, January 29th. We'll be right back.
Our old friends Arrowhead Mills was founded in the 1960s in the famous Texas Panhandle with the ambition to promote the production and use of pesticide-free grains, cereals, and pulses. The mission was to bring the most wholesome food attainable to the mainstream markets. Since then, Arrowhead Mills has increased its range of products, most of which are certified organic. You can be sure that Arrowhead Mills know a thing or two about good eats. This month, we're featuring Arrowhead Mills green and red organic lentils. Lindo's, why go anyplace else?
My inspiration to write this book has to do with empowering. I want people to understand what it looks like when you are in a position when you don't have the tools around you. If you know me or don't know me, the game, the beautiful game of football, soccer, is and always was a way out. I'm still fearful on what to do, what would happen if I say something.
What can we do in this book to incorporate tools to help specifically our group of young people in Bermuda?
Could you imagine doing a read with little people and breaking everything down for them and having them to have a voice and having conversation pieces, if it's chapter by chapter?
And welcome back. We're going to soon be joined by Daniel Augustus, Bermuda professional golfer over in Florida. But Jay, when we look at how things have started to return on the island in sport, give us a perception of how you see things. I want to see it from someone's eyes that's not heavily involved in it. I just want to see, what that take would look like.
Well, first things first, for the athletes who are involved, it's a reprieve, it's a road of some type of normalcy. We mentioned that the lack of sport, especially in our community, also creating a lot of problems, social problems, not only social problems, but personal problems when it comes to stress and things of this nature. So to get back out there, and for sportsmen, that's how athletes relieve their stress, is through sport. What was one of the things that I was really concerned about was the grassroots, the youngsters, because as we know, Earl, there's so much competition or so much distractions for youngsters to actually stay away from sport,
right?
And or a particular sport maybe because some sports have started, some haven't, whatever the case may be, or been slower on the restart. So some sport has probably lost athletes to another sport. Right, and sometimes it could be a good, talented youngster now going playing a different sport. So it's going to be interesting how all the sports navigate this, because once again, when you're not so much the virus, but the restrictions around some of the stuff with the amount of people that are allowed at some of these fields or venues, that's not making sense, and other conversations, it becomes frustrating. Especially when you're looking at, once again, the youth, because when you look at football and cricket and then even netball, I feel sorry for the young ladies and who love to play netball, but the venue that they have is not much you can really do for production. So I look at rugby and I see rugby. Some of the games have been off and on. Horse racing started back up. So it's good to know.
Not just horse racing, equestrian event.
Well, that's what I'm talking about.
One lot's covered by a certain group, but it's jumping, there's dressage. They've had events.
You know what? Okay, horses. Let's go horses. I haven't been to these streets here, right? I haven't been to Visa. I need to go to Visa Street, but there's a little too damp down there. When that hall comes through, I'm not that one, okay? Me and Mr. Ed ain't gonna be friends. I'm not sure he's staying with him. So it's damp down Visa Street this time of year.
Oh, they have a 3-letter thing down there.
You just heard put that thing online so I can check it on the heater. Okay, buddy? That's not gonna happen. I already told you my horse story, and it didn't end good. So
yes.
I love him from a distance. Okay. So, but I did get a chance to get down to the south side track to check out some motocross, and we see the youngsters who are involved down there, and like I said, to see parents, see fathers with that. So it is always a good feeling to just see sports back, because you see that interaction. Mm-hmm. And Errol, you notice, especially with with motocross, somebody could go down on their first lap, but they'll make us all the way back.
Right.
That's true sports.
Yeah.
You can fall down, the first couple of minutes and then make it all the way back and win a race. And that's truly sports. There's always overcoming. There's always you making the least amount of mistakes. And that's with any game.
Yeah.
Whether football, cricket, swimming, whoever makes the least amount of mistakes, you know they win.
Yeah.
So looking at that, looking at the international scene, it's I was tired of watching marbles on TV. What was the marbles going on? We saw a world championship of people playing it.
I was worried we would have to watch the one where the guy slides down on the skates and reels the ball, and you got guys down there brushing. Yeah, I was worried that's going to be our highlight.
But I saw world championship of people playing it. Like tapping you run around this obstacle course and people are chasing you and they touch you. Oh, yeah, it world championship, bro. So I'm saying this is what it's come to. No, man. No.
It'll get
it's something for everybody. I understand that, but come on, man.
Yeah, definitely.
Come on, man. But you know what, Earl? And hopefully before our guest comes on, because I don't want to forget this, because my mind's going a little bit. But before we do,
I don't want to say that. Yeah,
we are in NFL season, obviously coming down to the end of the NFL season, and I want to see if you can reach out to one of our former players from Bermuda.
Okay. Yeah.
Antonio Pierce. I know he was coaching.
Yeah.
And I heard his name come up in a conversation. I believe is coaching one of the colleges. So I just see if you can reach out and just
Long Beach.
Yeah, out in California, right? Yeah. So I want to see if you can reach out because it'd be interesting how he's managed this in the college scene over there.
Right.
You cover Patrick basketball with David Patrick.
Mm-hmm.
So it would be interesting to see how Antonio Pierce and then what he thinks of obviously with the playoffs and
I'll reach out to him.
Yeah. I think the next couple of weeks will be ideal because you got the playoffs. So.
Sure. Yeah, we have quite a few people. Even our athletes abroad are now kicking back in. We have the swimmers are back in the pool. We have squash players. You have tennis players getting ready to start their second half of their season. It's so much stuff going on. Obviously, we have the footballers over in the UK. We have other footballers around the world just doing their thing and enjoying themselves. We want to see if Daniel. Good evening, sir. How are you? Can you hear us, Daniel?
Yes.
You can hear us?
Back already. My boy.
Yeah, it's a little broken up. Can you hear me?
Okay. All right. I know what it is. It's the jersey you're wearing. It's the jersey.
Oh man, look at that man.
It's the jersey
They
I'm
picked
wearing.
up
Okay.
over Brentford and you won the World Cup. How's that?
Hey, take anything right now.
But Daniel, first of all, Happy New Year to you. I've watched your career for quite some time. It's been a long journey. Oh, he's dropped out. Hopefully we can get him back. But he's been on the grind from a young age and taking what one would consider chances of fulfilling his dream. And that's one of the things I admire about not only Daniel but others who take that opportunity, because it takes a lot of financing and courage to go out and attempt to meet your goal. And your goal, obviously, for someone like Daniel, is to be professional on the tour regularly. But that's not easy. It's easier said than done. And we've seen enough guys try to. How's this time, Daniel? Is it a little better? Can you hear us now? How's this? Can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear it.
Okay, all right. So give us a little bit of insight on, reflect back on your 2021 season. Yeah, we can hear you. Reflect back on your 2021 season for us. He's having internet problems.
Yeah.
Okay.
Trying to think of another way to do it.
21 was a. It
Yeah, it's dropping in and out, Daniel. It's dropping in and out.
all of this is just over the connection.
I can try one more time and then.
Yeah.
You're in Florida, right?
Yeah, log out and come back in and see if the connection is a little better, if you can hear me. Yeah, hopefully, I mean, we want to hear from a young man who's in that grind, understanding what it takes. So what we'll do is we'll take a quick commercial break, and hopefully when we come back, we've sorted it out. We'll be right back.
Amy's Kitchen is an independent organic food company, a family business who've been producing wholesome and flavorful foods over 30 years. From their first pot pie right up to 1 million meals a day, and firmly believe in the importance of TLC throughout the entire process. This month we're featuring a range of Amy's organic beans, refried and baked, chilies, medium, spicy and beyond, and a multitude of organic soups, minestrone, chunky tomato bisque, cream of mushroom, hearty Thai coconut, and much more. Lindo's, why anyplace else?
My inspiration to write this book has to do with empowering. I want people to understand what it looks like when you are in a position when you don't have the tools around you. If you know me or don't know me, the game, the beautiful game of football, soccer, is and always was a way out. Still fearful on what to do, what would happen if I say something.
What can we do in this book to incorporate tools to help specifically our group of young people in Bermuda?
Could you imagine doing a read with little people and breaking everything down for them and having them to have a voice and having conversation pieces, if it's chapter by chapter?
Yeah, we're back. He's still not back, so I guess he's still having internet problems. But just talking about the grind of a individual trying to become professional, we often only hear when they get to that finish line, and then and there's that gap in between where there's no interest. And when I talk about the media side of Bermuda. We only post, well, in the daily, they only post if somebody scores. So they just want to glorify things, but it's the time that the player needs support, that people know that they're actually out there grinding each and every day, training, playing, doing all sorts of things, whether it be semi-pro or pro. It's that type of, not when they okay, so this week, Willie Clemens scored. So more than likely, Willie Clemens will get something. But Willie Clemens, who's been playing for Stowe Market all this time, ain't got nothing because he hadn't scored.
Yeah.
So then people say, oh, I didn't even realize he was playing. That's because I honestly feel that that people are only interested in certain things at certain times, and it's actually hurting our sportsmen and the future athletes.
Yeah, you're actually talking about a whole other issue when it comes to journalism. There's different types of journalists, as you know. Investigative type. Back in the day, you were ordered to go get stories.
Right.
I knew when I was in college, and I had a instructor who was part of Reuters, and he would leave in mid-class and say, "Hey, see you guys next week. Gotta go to North Carolina." What you mean, gotta go? Gotta chase a story. It's just like, okay, well, what we do? I don't know, whatever you gotta do, but just I'll see you next week. And you just see his mind turn off. And it's amazing how you said that, because I don't think I haven't seen it for a while, and that's locally. I haven't seen it for a while that somebody is so invested in journalism. When I say journalism, chasing the story, chasing whether sports, whether it's investigative reporting, whatever, but just chasing the story. Now I see a lot of, let me troll social media. Let me wait for a press release. Let me look at a Twitter feed and let me pop it up. Hey, this is what
let me hope that an organization writes it for me so I can just put my name to it.
As before, as you know, or as before, a lot of it was dependent upon relationships of you being to the sports, becoming one with whether their PR, and some sports didn't even have a PR.
Right.
Right. But have a relationship with parents, have a relationship with coaches, have a relationship with organization members. So they would give you the heads up. How many times, and I say this here, how many times a club's sports awards have been covered?
Yeah.
And that is supposed to be the highlight of the whole season. That's what it actually gets covered. So you might get covered on the national side of it. I just think that we don't do enough covering, and like I said, that goes both ways too, because there's no excuse anymore for each organization to post, to have their own social media platforms. Each individual athlete build their own profile, build their own brand, because we talk about, hopefully we get him, but we're going to talk about people like Daniel Augustus and the like, Flora Duffy. How do you think they managed this? Through funds, through sponsorship. Well, how do you think our sponsors are looking at them? Some sponsors might look at them as, okay, a nice gentleman. I'm coming from Bermuda. I feel like I need to give him some. No, some's gonna be like, look, what you're gonna do for me? How do I expose you to highlight me?
Right.
It's a two-way street.
Yeah, definitely.
The brand, the business side has to be there, and I think once again, it's a bigger conversation because there's so many different variables that has to take place. But we just hate, and I say we because I agree with you. I hate when we're taking the shortcut.
Yeah, and there's a lot of shortcuts being taken. I think a lot of organizations behind the scenes are trying to get their message out, so they bring people in to do everything for them, write it up, send it out, and But I look at it like this: if us in journalism were a player or a manager of a team, some people wouldn't even have a job right now because it's poor. It's poor.
Yeah.
The leader would alone be fired, but they still have a job because they criticized the player. You see what I'm saying?
Crazy
but
part.
If the rules were reversed, they wouldn't have a job.
But the crazy part is, Earl, the journalism, especially and we talking. Let's take for instance, we look at the EPL. The other ones most of the time were calling for the coach's hands.
Yeah.
Or we looked in NFL. Look how many coaches got fired.
I saw a post online from a journalist in Bermuda talking about the captain of England and how could he still have a job. Well, this same person is the head of an organization, and it is poor. How does he still have a job? So when you do stuff online, don't forget, somebody could always reflect it back on you. He probably don't like what I'm saying. He'll probably have a post. But you know what? Fact is a fact is a fact.
That's the whole thing about online. It's still online. It's still online. So it's and you can only say sorry because once upon a time, like I said, your credibility was everything. So then when you start finding you can't get the interview that you want because people are, you know what? I'm not gonna get a fair shake out of this. I will give you. I'll spoon what I want you to know.
Yeah,
it's unfortunate because who does it really hurt? It hurts the overall sport because we're not exposing the sport, right?
Yeah, it's more personal for you.
How many times we've seen local teams go away, not live up to the expectations, and get bashed?
Yeah.
And I'm gonna hold up and say, you know what? I'm not talking to that guy for a little. I'm not talking to him.
Right. Well, and that's where I talk about the personal side.
Another sport could go away.
Yes.
To their expectations,
Yes.
nothing be said.
Yeah, it's the most comfortablest journalism in the world.
Crickets.
Yeah. But you know what's funny? I was watching, and everybody I knew around the world, not to go away from Bermuda, but everybody around the world was watching the saga going on in Australia with the number one player. And it was so funny that whilst he was in Australia, the Belarus minister said, yes, he broke the law. Okay. So he gets removed from Australia. He goes back and he's got a hero's welcome. So although he broke the law, they're not going to do anything to him. But while he was there, it was like, okay, we will look into it. We will, nothing's happened. Let's see if Daniel's on now. Daniel.
He can talk about that.
Daniel? Can you hear us?
All right, is this finally working? I can hear you.
Okay, we can hear you. Yeah. Okay, we can hear you. All right, so just give us a brief overview of your 2021 season.
You got dial up down there.
Daniel? Look, I'm gonna have to send him a message. Take off that shirt, and maybe your internet will work.
Bro. Hey, you gotta be close today. Close today.
Yeah, but that's the problem. You got girls, so the internet's not working.
Hey, we got girls today, mate. Yeah, I ain't taking back this date.
But let's hope he can try one more time. Daniel? Yeah. Let's hope he can try one more time and hopefully get something out of it, salvage something. If not, I'm gonna have to try something tomorrow with him, get some audio from him and drop it again in an interview. But when all eyes are on you and you're saying one thing, when back to the Djokovic story, when all eyes are on you when Djokovic was in Australia, the ministry, everybody, was on it. Yeah, he's been back now a few days. Not one charge has been laid.
To be honest with you, I want to know what's going to be the financial impact of him not being there, because through some players have not gone due to restrictions. Some players have not gone through injury. So we know that a lot of this is based off of, and you look, they don't really have any fans there from what I've seen.
Right.
So
they did the other day, and they had a fan that scored it out because he refused to wear his mask. Right.
So, but for the most part, it's been limited fans, right? So you're not making money off of fans coming through the game, right? So a lot of this is going to be dealt with TV exposure, right? Now, TV exposure works when they guide it by ratings.
Right.
It'd be interesting. Let me see.
Let's try this. Daniel, can you hear us?
Yeah, stop thinking.
I saw him blinking just now, so it was live. He was on.
All right, you.
Can you hear it?
Just got to send a pigeon for the message.
I don't know what's good.
Okay, all right. If you can hear me, Daniel, what we do, I'll give you a shout after this. I'll get some comments from you, and then we'll post that. How's that? If you can hear me.
Yeah, just do a video of his questions and post it. So
I'll do that. Yeah. So
before we go back to the story, let's stick with Daniel for a minute, because that way we can ask these questions and hopefully he'll give us a video response, and then you can post the response. How's that?
Yeah.
So one of the questions I would love to ask him, and obviously you're going to ask me what's his 2021 been like, but one of the things I love to ask Daniel is making that adjustment, because obviously a lot of your support system would have been here on the island. When you do take that leap of faith on your ability. A lot of times you're alone.
Mhm.
And it's not obviously when you do good or you shoot a good round or whatever, or you hit the ball good, you feel good. But my question is, how do you motivate yourself when you don't have that good day?
Right.
You
Right.
don't have the support behind you. You don't have, somebody say, "Hey, mate, da da da." I mean, do you call him? Do you have a coach there that's got you motivated or getting you going? What will be the things that will get him going? Whether it's back to the drive range, is it going to gym, or going to have a good meal?
Right.
It's not in Florida, so it ain't hard to find a good meal down there. I can tell you.
Right. Right. Yeah, definitely. Well, I just messaged them saying that I'm going to contact them right after this, and then hopefully we can get something up.
And also, and then we talked about it because we've seen this with our. Well, we've seen it with motocross riders. We've seen the few that are out there now riding, semi-professional. Also with swimmers, and I believe even you mentioned sport earlier, squash.
Yeah.
Right? So we're seeing, other athletes. Obviously, Florence and Tyler's. I've been doing that for a little while, but
Right.
what it takes, and then even getting a lack of support because financial support. How are they trying to obtain that sponsorship to the next tournament or the next heat or the next meet? Because sometimes you might say, you know what, I can't make that drive. This drive a little bit too far.
I think what athletes now are doing is mapping out, especially at the Olympic level, they map out a 4-year plan, and they take that not only to, I guess, the Olympic Association, but also to the sponsors, because you have to have a long-term plan of what events you're looking to do. We're hoping to finish if all goes well, because that's all attractive to anybody that's going to be putting some support behind you financially. So having that in your pocket is one of the things that I think has made someone like Flora successful, as well as her achievements. But it didn't happen overnight. I mean, look how long it took her to become a world champion. I'm not even talking about a gold medalist, but a world champion. You know what I mean? And then from that world champion in Xterra, it then grew to triathlon, and then it grew to the gold medal in triathlon. You know what I mean? So it was gradual. She broke that barrier in the Xterra, and then she broke that barrier in the original triathlon, and then broke that barrier in the Olympics. But anybody thinking, okay, I'm going to come out and I'm going to be a world beater from the start, that is very rare, very, very rare. I mean, okay, so we go back to Usain Bolt. He was here, he put on a show. How many years in between before he became the world beater? Now, he was always recognized.
Yeah.
But how many years in between did it take for him to become the world beater? Because it didn't happen overnight. Those are the type of things you got to go through. And I remember when his first Olympics game, when he got beaten, all the cameras were still on him.
Yeah.
Because they knew he was the future. But how did he stay focused enough to come back next time around?
Potentially be the future.
Well, yes, because it got all blown up.
Right.
It could have all blown up with the wrong thing said, the wrong thing done. It could have all blown up. Only because he had gone from this Carifta champion to struggling in the seniors, where the times he was running were matching the seniors, but when it got to the event, he just didn't have it. Just couldn't pull it out.
I've got a question for you. Because you have the heartbeat of sports, especially locally, right? And we're talking about athletes going abroad to improve their sport, or improve their standing in the sport. How much does that actually hurt our local sports? Especially when we talk about, especially with so many kids, especially at a young age, going away for football, right? And
we've seen it over the last, I would say, 10 years, 10, 15 years. You see the level, we'll use football one. You see the level of football improve over the Christmas period, because the guys who are away come back to improve their teams. Now, it was done for several teams back in the day. but now more and more players are away. So you see that now the growth of a lot of teams now when they bring these players back over the Christmas break. And then what happens is you have what one would consider domestic players, and then you have international players. And that's no disrespect to the guys that play here, but you got to remember, if you look at the 2019 Nation League team, we had several players who were local that made that national team, but majority were overseas. Now, the local players, because the coaches, and they had time, took that time and put the work in with those local players. So when the overseas players came back, the fitness level was there, the understanding of what you had to do. Your first touch was a lot better, and it improved them in their team. But if you don't have enough people doing that in the domestic team, you know what I mean? It's night and day. It's the same thing for cricket. Same thing. I mean, all sports, especially team sports, you see it when we have a multitude of people going off the island for a period of time. So the league doesn't look as strong as it did when those players were in Bermuda. And it's worse when you have individual sports, something like a tennis. So right now, Tariq Simons is the top player on island. Everybody else around his age group are off island.
Yeah.
So for him, he's got to kind of keep encouraging the likes of Gavin, David Thomas, and other people to keep playing, to keep him up here. So when those guys do come back, you know what I mean? It's like that. So that in that regard, it hurts, but that's where we are.
And then on the other foot, we encourage those athletes to go away so they can get to a better, a more competitive arena. So I look at the karting.
Yes.
You know, not getting competition here.
Right.
Wow, yeah, and then you get to see where you are against the region, around the region, and then from the region, then it might go national. From national, then it might go world. So, right. I mean, these are things that I love. Once again, I love about sports because it's all about that journey.
Yeah, yeah, and the risk you take, because obviously you have to have buy-in, especially when you start talking about young people. Again, it's letting go. As you know, our kids are being let go a lot earlier now. To get involved in any professional sport or any higher level sport that they're trying to get into. So they're going to boarding school at 11, whether it be for football, tennis, hockey, whatever it is.
You've had a few interviews on with families.
Mm-hmm.
I've known a few people who've had their kids go boarding school. And that was probably one of the hardest things for the mothers to deal with, sending my baby.
Yeah, that's my baby. But you know what's funny, Jay? And most of them, although they know it's the right thing, they make a decision to say, okay, I am one flight away from getting there to them. So a lot of the decision is made by how close they are.
What's also interesting, it depends on what sport the age limit is.
Oh, yes.
We had the two youngsters on the other night. And Burnley, Ejai Tucker and
Hall from Hull City.
Hull City, right? And Ejai had said, basically, you got to get out here.
Yeah.
No, or younger.
No, you're too late.
Too late because it's so much of that going on. So each sport has a different age limit. I was golf. You can probably go a little later.
Right.
But you see what I'm saying? Some of these sports are a little bit young, you got to go when you can.
Yeah.
It's interesting because we had a story, or you was covering the story, and you keep up with the dailies.
Mm-hmm.
Canada.
Yeah.
What should they do? Should they come back here to swim, or should they stay up there? And I mean, the young lady who's skating for Canada for Vanessa.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Where you skating down here? Get a reward point. I hope he got a little something on
it. But they go out on PCC on that rig, but yeah.
That's rollerblades. I know, but but that's like I said, you got to take that chance, and hopefully, we saw Tyron Smith do that.
Mhm.
You end up meeting somebody, you get married, and hey, that's your life now. So it's we've seen that with a lot of our athletes. It's just amazing that once again, I love the fact that they go through this journey because it's nothing smooth.
Yeah.
I heard some stories yesterday, and yesterday was the transition of a friend, the late Antoine Jones, and I watched the funeral on online while I was doing homeschool there because the youngster. I think she was finished at the time. She had just got her right.
They're trying to not get any attention, but yeah.
Yeah, but no. To be honest with you, I mean, one of the tournaments they had mentioned, one of the first international tournaments, the Lee Evans tournament down in Miami
Right.
at the Cloverleaf Lanes, and from my conversations with you, that's one of the tournaments I went in back in '88, and I think he did his in '76, may have been. So I called a friend of mine down in Miami and said, "Hey, how long has this tournament really been around, man? Because I'm hearing stories of this. Man, back in black and white pictures, man. So when you hear of, and I say because folks who don't know, so this is a tournament that basically invites youngsters, because all based on youngsters from around the Caribbean, from around the Americas, from the southern region, and they come there to bowl, right? And so you put yourself up against people from Argentina or Venezuela or Colombia or Puerto Rico or Brazil or obviously America. These got a contingency. So everybody puts a team in, and you send your kids. And then to hear that some of the tributes are people that he met through that tournament over all those years.
Yeah.
So once again, he would have never had to met these folks or raised his game without going to tournaments like this, getting off the island and being tested. And then next thing you know, you got these lifetime friendships.
Yeah. Well, let's take our final commercial break. When we come back, we'll wrap this up. We'll be right back.
John Barrett and Son, home of Bermuda's best beverages, is starting the new year with an exciting new beverage, Numa, the organic sport hydration drink. Founded by brothers Brandon and Jared, both pro hockey players, Numa stands for No More Artificials and is an organic plant-based sports drink with real ingredients like organic coconut water and Himalayan pink salt. Numa partnered with fitness groups in the USA early in their development and expertly responded to the call for purity and simplicity. Try all flavors of Numa organic sports drink this month. Lindo's, why go anyplace else?
My inspiration to write this book has to do with empowering. I want people to understand what it looks like when you are in a position when you don't have the tools around you. If you know me or don't know me, the beautiful game of football, soccer, is and always was a way out. Still fearful on what to do, what would happen if I say something.
What can we do in this book to incorporate tools to help specifically our group of young people in Bermuda?
Could you imagine doing a read with little people and breaking everything down for them and having them to have a voice and having conversation pieces, if it's chapter by chapter?
And welcome back. Well, hopefully we can we'll get some comments from Daniel. He's standing by, so once we finish, I'll just send him a few messages, and then hopefully he'll get back to me. Also, we're hoping to eventually speak with the Epic Entertainers officials, so we get an update on next week Saturday's boxing event. I'm pretty sure with so many things changing and so many things remaining the same, they've still got challenges that they've got to work out.
And who knows? That probably, who knows what's going on there. Also, before we get out of here, Earl, the BFA released some rescheduled games for the second half of the season, and we see during the schedule, we see a couple of fields coming online with some lights. that ain't had lights for a little while.
Misinformation.
Well, like I said, we see it on the schedule. Now, whether it happens, I'm just
Corrected. It's been corrected.
So it's been corrected already. Okay. So,
Correct.
but I just want to even for you, because you're obviously a former player, but my question would be for you is a couple of fields would have been
back when I was playing.
Exactly. So somewhere like PHC.
Well, Somerset PHC, PAA, Devonshire Rack. There's really not fields.
Right, and then also eventually will be Bernards Park, which will be a new field for night, so we can't really talk about them.
He's actually in the process of getting their lights turned back on. There's some hope that Devonshire Rack will come online soon. That's been in the works as well. So, the more fields we can get back up and running for night venues, I think it eases up the schedule, eases up the officials. So it's one of those things where the more availability to play games on more dates, more days, I think it's best for the association.
So once again, I'm not worried about the schedule now. I'm talking about you now. Let's get back to you. What was some of the pros and cons of each field? Let's go to each field, because there's some to come back on, obviously. Yes,
field. I think the most intimidating field was PHC, because everybody was up against the fence, and there weren't much room on the touchline. So, that and there's so many people, so it could be intimidating at times. I mean, you want to put on a show when you got out there. I think one of the more relaxing places was Devonshire Rack, because the fans were so high and away from you. It's almost gives you like the National Sports Center. When you play at the stadium, because the crowd is not right on top of you, it's a different feeling. I remember playing at the stadium in a cup final against St. David's when they had just finished the grandstand, and they had nothing on the bleacher side where the bleachers are now, the Frogland side, and it for the players playing the game, it was one thing, but when you took a moment to look around, it wasn't the same. It wasn't like the final that was played between St. George's and PAC at PAC that night there, because everybody was right there on you. You felt it. You know what I mean? It was like, okay, we're in a cup final, but that next final was like so far away. Almost need a megahorn to for the fans to hear what the fans were saying.
Man, to hear these stories, because it's so, you in your mind, you're playing this, and it's so vividly, you remember. So before we go, I was at the funeral of our old colleague, Mike Sharp, and Sean Haywood. Sean Haywood played the saxophone for the funeral. So Sean showed me this picture with Mike Sharp in it.
Right.
Big afro, and then it started to name off these guys. Sean, that you? So yeah, that's me. I'm like, Sean, you there for Sean. Bill Devonshire Colts.
Sure.
Crystal Palace up at the stadium.
There you go.
Where they had beat Somerset 5-0, so he could tell you all about the. He was telling the whole story, like I said, his lived it out. Here it is, 40 years later?
Remember like it's yesterday.
Remember like it was yesterday, man. He was telling you the whole thing, And
remember, Jay, when we had Crystal Palace around was like when we had Shell Cricket.
That's right.
That's
what he may not remember. Crystal Palace was always played just before the FA Cup.
That's right. Yeah.
So there wasn't like a couple of hundred people. There was a couple of thousand people.
Yeah, that's right. And you would socks up. You're ready to put it on show, mate.
And it had the little string around it, this and keep it. Well, every generation had their own little style of what.
Yeah. Some guys had the socks rolled at the top.
Yeah.
Some had shoelaces tied around the top to keep before tape.
Before tape.
Yeah, before tape. Yeah.
Some didn't want to wear pants at all. They want to have socks.
You only had to do was kick once. Bring those pants out here,
No, but like I said, it'd be nice to see these venues come back online, and I just can't wait to go check them. So hopefully, we'll get some confirmation soon, very soon, about some of these venues.
Sure.
We tell everybody.
Yeah. Yeah. We'll wait till they're ready to announce them. Although I know a little more, so I'll just leave it like that. How's that?
I'm ready where you are, buddy.
All right. Well, folks, we'll be back next week with another edition of the Island Stat Sports Show. I'm your host, Darrell Bearson. Thank you very much to co-host Juggling Jay. Again, we'll get back with Daniel Augustus, Bermuda's professional golfer, and the promoters of Fight Night for next week, Saturday night, Epic Entertainment. But with that, we say good night.